Okay, so I'm actually a little torn with this one because each time I found something I liked, I found something I disliked. It was a really weird balance of being like, aw, hell yeah, and then like physically cringing in my seat. So, Mortal Kombat is a 2021 action fantasy movie adaptation of the popular fighting game, Mortal Kombat. It tells the story of... Okay, let's just skip all that and just get right into it. So like I said, every time I found something I liked, I found something I disliked. So let's just get all the good things out of the way first. Number one, the CGI was really cool. Alright, now on to the bad parts. No, yeah, just kidding. It was a joke. Anyway, yeah, I was actually really impressed with the level of detail they had in the CGI in this movie. I think the thing that made it unique was the fact that it stayed true to the visual style of the Mortal Kombat games. Like, if somebody's head got chopped off, for example, you would see, like, their spine sticking out, and the blood would look more like strawberry jam than actual human blood. So it was gore, but it wasn't the disgusting, I feel uncomfortable, like, feet clenching, toes curling type gore that you see in like a horror movie. It felt very video game-esque. So I was actually pretty happy that the influences from the original Mortal Kombat games actually made it to the screen. And on top of that, the fighting scenes were actually just really fun to watch. Like, I think the fight scenes are definitely my biggest takeaway, and whoever choreographed them did a really good job, because they were just insane. So one of the advantages of using CGI, especially in the state of what CGI is today, is being able to follow an object where a camera wouldn't normally be able to follow. Like, a dude would throw a weapon and then the camera would just stick with the weapon to show how intense and crazy the motion was. And I guess that's actually one thing about the fight scenes that stood out to me the most. There was a big emphasis on the weapons being used, as each weapon was unique to the person using it. I was gonna say character, like video game characters, but because it's a movie, it's a person, so whatever, you get it. And this emphasis on the weapons being used in the fights almost made it seem like the weapons kind of had their own sort of character and they took on their own role in each fight. But while all this crazy CGI is an advantage of modern filmmaking, I would say it's actually a disadvantage for the movie as a whole. And when I say movie as a whole, I'm mainly talking about the Mortal Kombat franchise, not just this standalone movie. Like, I don't think there was a single fight in the entire movie that even remotely resembled what a Mortal Kombat fight looked like in the video games. You know, with the like 2D look and both characters are kind of charging up their moves, and then one character will activate their move and it'll go like super slow motion and then speed ramp up to the punch hitting the other character, and the camera like zooms in as it slows down and then it speeds up again. Yeah, I would have thought the movie would have had a similar feel to the fight scenes, but they didn't. So it technically was Mortal Kombat, but it didn't feel like Mortal Kombat. Also, a lot of the characters were kind of meh. I'm pretty sure the main character was the only character who wasn't in the original games, and he didn't do anything. He was like the most passive main character I've seen in a while. He was like the worst main character you could have for a movie as intense as Mortal Kombat. There were a ton of scenes where two characters would be like all up in each other's faces, like building some tension, getting ready to fight, and he would just be like there, just like in the room, not contributing anything to the scene, like actually just sitting there. And at first I was like, okay, you know what, this is probably intentional, they're probably setting it up this way. I was assuming they were purposely making him a passive character so that when he got his power-up thing, he would change and become more assertive, but then when he got his power-up, he was just the same guy. It was like nothing had changed. So I was actually a little disappointed by that. And because of how passive he was for the majority of the movie, it felt like one of the side characters in particular, just stole the entire show. Kano, who I'm fairly certain was supposed to just be the comic relief, ended up talking for like more than half of the movie. And it was actually a little like obnoxious because something cool would be happening, some crazy development, and then he would just try to like slide some cheap joke in. Like not even like a clever joke, just a joke for the sake of having a joke. And it was actually a little confusing because it just made me go back and forth like what is your motive here? Do you want me to laugh at this scene, or because only like a quarter of his jokes actually landed. And when I did laugh, I felt like they were kind of pity laughs. And then yeah, the dialogue was pretty okay for the most part, I guess. There was a lot of on-the-nose dialogue, and they would just kind of try to like insert it into all the wrong places. Like Sub-Zero and Scorpion would be in the middle of the fight, and then bam, Cole would just be like, "There's no way. He's too strong. He's too strong for me. An orphan from Chicago with a birthmark that looks like a dragon." Or, you know, there was another scene where Sonya Blade was talking to Jax, and she was just like, "All I wanted was to be accepted by you." Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous, just how corny a lot of these moments were. But you gotta remember, it is Mortal Kombat. So that's kind of what I mean when I say I found something I liked, and then I found something I disliked. Because I found it to be very corny and very cheesy, but then I was like, oh, you know what? That's like the appeal of Mortal Kombat to a certain extent, obviously. You know, a lot of people were comparing this movie to the Godzilla vs. Kong movie that just came out, which makes a lot of sense because both that movie and this one are centered around like two massive powerhouses coming together and just duking it out. In Godzilla vs. Kong, it was Godzilla vs. Kong. In this one, it was Sub-Zero versus Scorpion. But even though they advertised this movie as it being the battle to end all battles between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, it really didn't feel like the narrative of the story was building up to that fight. It was like you had the plot with Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and then on top of that, you had the plot with all the other characters. And they didn't really... usually when you have like an A plot and a B plot, they kind of like do their own thing, and then at some point they intersect, right? And that's usually towards the end. But both of these plots were just kind of like independent of one another. I'd say like 70% of the movie was the plot with like Cole and Sonya Blade and Jax and all those other dudes. And then the last like 30% of the movie was the actual Scorpion versus Sub-Zero fight. But actually, the other day I was talking to one of my buddies about it, and he was mentioning something that like changed my whole view on the movie. He pretty much said, yeah, it's just like Godzilla vs. Kong, where if you go in expecting this crazy like Academy Award winning narrative, you're gonna be disappointed. But if you go in expecting to see a giant lizard fight a giant monkey, you're gonna be pretty satisfied. And likewise, if you go into this movie expecting crazy plots and like crazy character developments and all this stuff, you're gonna be pretty let down. But if you go in with the expectation of like, okay, I'm just gonna sit back and watch a bunch of dudes fight with crazy power-ups and crazy moves and super cool choreography and awesome CGI, you'll be pretty satisfied. So, I'm thinking I give Mortal Kombat a 6 out of 10. Again, just to reiterate, similar to the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, don't go in expecting some mind-blowing content. Go in expecting to see some really cool fights, and I think you'll be pretty satisfied. Because it did have really good fight scenes. Like, I will give it that. And, yeah, let me know what you think. Agree, disagree, whatever. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. And if you dislike the video, go ahead and leave a like anyway and subscribe later.